The envelope arrived on a quiet Thursday morning, slipped under the door like a secret waiting to be discovered. I picked it up, recognizing the heavy cream paper and elegant gold embossing instantly. It was the kind of stationery only one person in my life used with such pride. Evelyn Harrington, my mother-in-law. For 3 years, she had made it painfully clear that I was not the wife she wanted for her son. I was too ordinary, too emotional, too attached to my simple upbringing. But standing there, staring at my name beautifully handwritten Amara Lawson, I allowed myself a moment of foolish hope. Maybe things were finally changing. Maybe this was her way of extending a hand. Maybe, after all this time, she was ready to let me belong. Inside the envelope was an invitation to the inauguration of her newly built mansion. The Harrington estate, a sprawling palace she had been boasting about for months. Adrian, my husband, had been deeply involved in its construction. He spent long nights at the site, attending meetings, answering Evelyn's endless demands. Every time I asked to join him, he told me, "It's better if you stay home. Mom gets stressed easily." But when I showed him the invitation, he only raised an eyebrow. "Oh, she sent you one. Interesting. Interesting." I asked, confused. "Why wouldn't she?" He shrugged. "Mom is unpredictable, but if you want to go, we'll go." His words felt lukewarm, but I pushed the discomfort aside. I wanted this to be the day things changed, not just with Evelyn, but with Adrian too. We had been drifting apart quietly, gently, like two boats caught in separate currents. I hoped this event might bring us back together. The day of the inauguration arrived like a shimmering promise. I wore a soft champagne colored dress, elegant, respectful, but not flashy enough to irritate Evelyn. I spent extra time curling my hair, telling myself I just wanted to look presentable. Though deep down, I craved Evelyn's approval more than I wanted to admit. As we drove through the massive gates of the new mansion, my breath caught. The building rose before us like a sculpture carved out of wealth. White marble pillars, grand arched windows, manicured gardens lined with fountains. Everything screamed perfection and power. Guests filled the driveway, dressed as though attending a royal event. Women in dresses that cost more than my monthly salary. Men with watches that glinted under the sun like tiny suns of their own. I felt small, but I squeezed Adrian's hand for reassurance. His fingers twitched and slipped away. Inside, a server handed us glasses of champagne. I scanned the room, hoping to find Evelyn and offer my greeting. But when our eyes met across the hall, her expression tightened, like someone had splashed cold water on her perfect makeup. She whispered something to the woman beside her, who immediately glanced at me with a mixture of pity and amusement. My stomach tightened. Still, I walked with Adrian to the main hall where the ceremony would take place. Chandeliers cascaded from the ceilings, crystals shimmering like frozen rain. Everything was stunning yet sterilized, cold, like a museum where emotions were forbidden. As the guests mingled around us, I felt the invisible walls growing higher. People's eyes skimmed over me briefly, uninterested, then quickly shifted to Evelyn, the star of the afternoon. I smiled politely, trying to make conversation, but something felt off, like there was a joke I didn't understand, a quiet whisper behind every polite smile. Every few minutes, I caught Evelyn's gaze flicking toward me, disapproval etched deep in her expression. Adrian stayed unnervingly quiet, his jaw set, his shoulders stiff. I touched his arm gently. "Is everything okay?" His answer was quick. Too quick, "Everything's fine," but something inside me whispered, "No, it isn't." I didn't know it yet, but this was the calm before the storm. The last few moments before the world I thought I belonged to would be ripped away from me in front of everyone. And it all began with that single, deceptive invitation. The ceremony was minutes away from beginning. Guests gathered in the grand courtyard, the air buzzing with excitement and polite conversation. A red velvet ribbon stretched across the entrance of the mansion, guarded by photographers preparing to capture Evelyn's historic moment. Adrian kept glancing around nervously, checking his phone, tapping his foot, avoiding my eyes. Something was wrong, terribly wrong, and the dread inside me was growing like a shadow. "Adrian," I whispered, "why are you acting so strange?" Before he could respond, Evelyn strutted toward us in a glittering emerald gown, her smile bright but her eyes cutting. She didn't greet me. She didn't even pretend. "Adrian," she said sharply, "we need to talk." Her gaze flicked to me with thinly veiled disgust. Privately, "No," I said before Adrian could move. "If it involves me, I deserve to hear it." Evelyn looked as if I had committed a grave offense simply by speaking. She leaned in, her perfume suffocatingly strong. "Don't make a scene, Amara. This event is too important for your disruptions. Disruptions." The word stung. I swallowed hard. "I haven't done anything." Evelyn didn't answer. She simply gave Adrian a look, one that said, "Handle it now." He sighed, grabbed my wrist gently but firmly, and pulled me toward a side hallway away from the crowd. "Adrian, please," I whispered, "what is going on?" He rubbed his forehead as though my presence exhausted him. "Amara, you need to leave." My heart stopped. "What?" He avoided my eyes. "My mother doesn't want you here." The words sucked the air out of my lungs. I don't understand," I stammered. "She sent me the invitation with my name on it." "That was a mistake," he said flatly. "She didn't mean to include you." I felt the ground shift beneath my feet. "Are you hearing yourself? I'm your wife. How can you ask me to leave your family event like I'm a problem?" He finished quietly. "Mom says your presence will distract from the inauguration. She doesn't want any drama today." My voice cracked. "Drama? I've done nothing but be respectful to her." He shrugged. "She feels you don't fit the image of the Harrington family, and she's worried about how people will perceive her." I stared at him, tears burning behind my eyes. "And what about how I feel, Adrian? What about your wife?" He closed his eyes. "Please, Amara, just go home. We'll talk later." "No," I whispered fiercely, "not until you look at me and tell me this is what you want." He hesitated, only for a second, but it was enough. "Amara, just leave," he said finally. "Don't make it harder." That was it. No defense, no support, no loyalty. Just obedience to his mother. Behind us, I heard a voice dripping with satisfaction. "Is she finally going?" Evelyn asked loudly, making no attempt to hide her contempt as a few guests looked over curiously. Adrian nodded. Yes, the humiliation washed over me like ice water. I felt exposed, pathetic, discarded. I took a shaky breath and stepped away from Adrian. My fingers trembled as I held onto the small wrapped gift I'd brought for Evelyn, now feeling like a mockery of my intention. As I turned to walk out, Evelyn's voice followed me like a blade. "Next time, be considerate enough not to show up uninvited." Uninvited? The invitation that had given me hope now burned like a brand of shame. Guests watched as I walked alone across the courtyard. Some whispered, some smirked, some pitied me. Not one person stepped forward to question why the wife of the host's son was being escorted out like an intruder. Outside the gates, the wind was cold and merciless. I stood there trembling, gift still in my hands, mascara burning my eyes. The chauffeur hesitated before asking softly, "Ma'am, should I drive you home?" I nodded, unable to speak. But inside me, something was changing, breaking, hardening. As the car pulled away, I looked back at the mansion, glowing under the sun like it owned the world. Let them laugh today, I thought, wiping my tears. One day, they will choke on the very pride they used to humiliate me. The ride home from the mansion felt like a slow-motion nightmare. I sat in the back seat of the car, staring at my reflection in the tinted window. My makeup was smudged, my heart felt bruised, and my soul hollow. I replayed Adrian's words again and again. "My mother doesn't want you here." He had said it so calmly, as if he were discussing the weather, as if pushing his wife out of a family event was a reasonable request, as if my humiliation meant nothing to him. When we reached home, the silence in the house wrapped around me like a dark fog. My footsteps echoed through the hallway, each step heavier than the last. I placed Evelyn's unopened gift on the dining table with trembling hands. I didn't cry right away. I was too numb for that. Instead, I walked upstairs to our bedroom, sat on the edge of the bed, and stared at the wall for a long, empty stretch of time. Then finally the dam broke. I cried quietly at first, then violently until my body shook and my eyes burned. I cried for my marriage, for my dignity, for every time I had tried to prove my worth to a woman who never intended to accept me. Hours passed, my tears dried, but the bitterness remained. Adrian still hadn't come home. That somehow was the final blow. By midnight, anger began replacing pain. I wiped my face and forced myself to breathe deeply. I needed water. As I walked toward the kitchen, something caught my attention. Adrian's study door was slightly open. He never left it open. Curiosity drew me in. Papers were scattered across the desk. His laptop was open, and a folder titled Harrington Holdings Private sat in plain view. Something inside me whispered, "Look." My hands trembled as I clicked the folder. Inside were financial documents, emails, and recorded conversations, and slowly, horrifyingly, the truth unraveled before me. Evelyn had been planning to cut me out of Adrian's life for months. She had convinced him that once he distanced himself from me, investors would take him more seriously. She wanted him to appear unencumbered, focused, and aligned only with family. But the worst part, Adrian agreed. He wasn't forced. He wasn't manipulated. He chose to participate. Mom is right. One of his messages read, "Emara doesn't belong in this world. She holds me back. A knife to my heart would have hurt less." Another message, "Once we finalize the property transfer, we'll figure out how to handle the divorce." Divorce, property transfer. Handle me like a business problem. And then the final blow. A voice memo from Evelyn saying, "Once she's out, everything will fall into place. Trust me." I pressed play again and again, not believing what I was hearing. All the nights Adrian had stayed late at work. All the coldness, all the distance. It wasn't stress. It wasn't exhaustion. It was betrayal, a measured, calculated betrayal. My breath shook. My hands turned ice cold. But in that moment of shattering clarity, something powerful awakened inside me. I wasn't going to cry anymore. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to let them destroy me. If they wanted me out of their world so badly, fine. But I wouldn't leave quietly. The next morning, before Adrian returned home, I began gathering everything: documents, copies of emails, voice notes. I transferred them to a secure drive and sent them to my private email, ensuring nothing could disappear later. Then I packed a suitcase with clothes, essentials, and the last remaining pieces of the life I thought I had. I walked downstairs, removed my wedding ring, and placed it carefully on the dining table beside Evelyn's unopened gift, a symbol of what I had endured, and a symbol of what I was leaving behind. Before stepping out the door, I paused, took one last look at the house, and whispered, "You wanted me gone, now I'm gone, but this isn't the end, it's the beginning." I closed the door behind me, not as a broken wife, but as a woman ready to rise. And unknowingly, with the skills I possessed, the connections I was about to form, and the truth I held in my hands, I was about to become the very storm that would bring their empire to its knees. 6 months passed quiet on the outside, but roaring inside me. I rebuilt myself piece by piece. I poured my energy into my work, and soon my financial expertise caught the attention of Titan Crest Investments, a powerful firm expanding into real estate. They valued my intelligence in ways Adrian never had. Within weeks, I was promoted to strategic partner. But fate is poetic. Titan Crest's newest target investment was none other than Harrington Holdings' upcoming luxury project, a venture Adrian and Evelyn had bet everything on. Their pride, their future, their empire, and I now held the pen that could sign their success or erase it. On the day of their grand launch event, invitations spread across the city like wildfire. Cameras lined the entrance. Journalists hovered like hawks. It was supposed to be their redemption after the inauguration scandal. Instead, it would be my stage. When I arrived, conversations halted, heads turned. Adrian's eyes widened with disbelief. Evelyn looked as if the ground had tilted. I walked in with Titan Crest CEO beside me, Amara. Adrian finally managed, stepping forward. You came." His tone was hopeful, desperate almost. I smiled politely. "I'm here for business, Adrian, nothing more." Evelyn scoffed. "You think you can just walk in here after everything?" But the CEO interrupted her smoothly. "Mrs. Lawson is our partner, and the one who reviewed your project personally." The silence that followed was suffocating. I stepped forward, calm, and composed the opposite of the broken woman they once discarded. "After reviewing your internal finances," I said, meeting Adrian's eyes, "Titan Crest has chosen to withdraw its investment." Evelyn gasped. "Withdraw? You can't. This project depends on you." "Exactly," I replied softly, "which is why integrity matters." Murmurs spread across the room like wildfire. I continued, "We cannot partner with individuals who manipulate, deceive, and exploit others for their own gain." Adrian's face turned pale. "Emarath, please don't do this." For a moment, I saw the man I once loved, but the memory of being cast out of their mansion like an unwanted stray hardened my resolve. "I didn't do this to you," I said gently. "You did this to yourselves." Evelyn's voice trembled with rage. "You don't belong here." I finally let the smile reach my eyes. "No," I whispered, "you don't, not anymore." And with the cameras capturing every second, I turned and walked away, free, powerful, and finally, beautifully victorious.